Hi, my name is Anthony Mongiello. My friends, they call me the Big Cheese. I'm the founder of Formaggio Cheese. I decided I want to take this opportunity to connect with you, my customer. I want to share with you a question I'm asked quite often. What made me decide to be in the cheese business? My grandfather came from Italy in 1906. In Italy, he was a tinsmith by trade, meaning he worked with thin metal. When he came to the US, he brought his trade with him. And what he did was he created metal ricotta cans. Metal ricotta cans with holes in them. Because when you hot dip ricotta, you use a soup ladle, and that cheese has a lot of extra water in it, whey. And that whey would come out through those holes. And that's what he was famous for. So like I said, he hooked up with the cheese industry, and he would go to all these cheese making facilities, and he would bring his son, who was my dad, Angelo Sr. And when my dad would visit these cheese making facilities, he would see men what he called painstakingly molding mozzarella by hand. And so what he did was he is noted for the creation of the very first automated mozzarella machine in the history of the United States. The truth is, it sounds really impressive. It sounds like I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. But no. Growing up in the streets of Brooklyn, it was feast or famine. When my dad did sell a machine, he was happy and he brought home a new car. When he didn't sell a machine for a year, we would eat pasta every night. It's just the way it was. But when I was in college, I realized I wanted to get into the real world. So when I left college, I asked my dad if he can help me and help find me a job. And I was able to get a job with a friend of his who was the largest paleo cheese distributor in the metropolitan area. The reality is, all those square paleo mozzarellas that he was selling were all made on my dad's machines, the equipment that he designed and built in a little shop in Brooklyn on 62nd Street and 8th Avenue. But it was there that I got my real taste of what the mozzarella business and the mozzarella industry was all about. It was where I learned to love mozzarella. Key, fresh mozzarella. I watched the transition take place of where people were switching from regular square mozzarella that was made on my dad's equipment to fresh, handmade, hand-molded mozzarella once again, as it was many years ago in Italy. Well, the reality was I fell in love with it, and I learned how to make cheese from one of those men that used to mold fresh mozzarella by hand. I learned the do's and the don'ts, what you should do to be successful, and the shortcuts you shouldn't take if you want to stay successful. So the reality is, I learned a lot more than I ever could have learned back then in college. And I fell in love with the Italian cheese, fresh mozzarella industry. I am lucky enough to show you what one of my grandfather's cans actually looked like. This is for a company called Oliva. Oliva Dairy was in business over 100 years, and they were located on Mulberry Street in Little Italy in Manhattan. And if you read the bottom of the can, it says L. Mongiello Can Company, Brooklyn, New York. And I'm proud to say that this was my grandfather's company, and these were one of the cans that he actually produced when he came to America. So many years later, I wanted to get into my own business and start my own business. I wanted to start a fresh mozzarella company. And that's because, as I said, I've been watching this transition of people changing from that square consumer-sized mozzarella, as my dad would call it, to the fresh mozzarella from years ago. And I wanted to start my own business. I found a garage-sized building in Brooklyn. It was 30 feet wide and 60 feet deep. But I took all the money I had and I invested it into this little building. And I built an incredible food-safe room, and I started making and selling fresh mozzarella. Fresh mozzarella that was starting to take over and become so popular that I realized if I got into this trend, I could have a nice business. What happened is I started selling fresh mozzarella, and there was a few people already in business selling fresh mozzarella, but I would go to a local store, a Salameria of sorts, and I'd ask him, sir, can I sell you some fresh mozzarella? I'd like to show you what I have. And he'd say to me, Anthony, you're a nice guy, but I'm buying it from this other gentleman for the last 5 years. Why would I want to switch? And the truth is, I didn't have a good answer. I told him, I'll give you a better price. Well, lo and behold, that lasted for about a week. And then the next week, he took my bill, showed it to his older supplier, and I was out, and the older supplier was back in at a lower price, and I got nervous. I went to my pop, who was my mentor, not my partner. I said, Pop, how am I going to build a business off such a rocky foundation where I can have the business today and lose it tomorrow? And I explained to him what I just went through with that store that I was selling fresh mozzarella to for only a week. And he looks me straight in the eye and he says, that's because you're selling products everybody else is. And if you went ahead and created your own items, well, you could build a niche in this industry. I said, that's a good idea, Pop. And that's what I did 34 years ago. I set my sights on creating new and innovative ways for people to enjoy fresh mozzarella the way it was meant to be. So I put my thinking cap on and I started walking the stores. And I started looking for the voids. And I realized something. Back in 1991 when I first started, the only people buying fresh mozzarella were Italian people. But there was a reason. It's because fresh mozzarella inherently doesn't have a lot of flavor. It's as fresh as a glass of milk. And we know for kids, when it comes to drinking milk, sometimes we got to add chocolate or strawberry, and we have to do that to flavor the milk. So what we did at home as an Italian family is we would take fresh mozzarella. If you walked in the supermarket back in 1991, you could buy a Cellangini cherry-sized fresh mozzarella ball in water. Well, we had to take it home, dump the water out, and then marinate it with fresh herbs and spices, some lightweight oil, some olive oil, and create a flavor profile that was unique to the Italian heritage. With that, I said to myself, if I could take this flavor profile, put it in a cup, and put it in a supermarket and sell it, I could expand the customer base, and I can sell fresh mozzarella to more people of different backgrounds than just Italian people. And that's what I set my sights on, to be able to grow my customer base and bring fresh mozzarella to the masses, to everybody, so everybody could enjoy fresh mozzarella as much as I did. So, if you can envision this, Formaggio was the first company to create a truly marinated fresh mozzarella in a container where a consumer could walk into a supermarket, pick up that package, bring it home, and all the flavor profile was in that package. All you had to do was open it and serve it. And that is what took Formaggio from zero to a hero. My marinated mozzarella was my flagship for the first 20 years of being in business. But every year I vowed that I would come up with new items for you, my customer. New ways to try and appreciate fresh mozzarella. Different ways to use it as an appetizer or to create simplistic recipes at home, meals. Take my marinade and mix it with a shortcut pasta, put it over some lettuce. I use the marinade and I baste the steak, I barbecue it, I warm up the mozzarella balls in a microwave for 10 to 15 seconds, and I'll tell you, I think the mozzarella tastes better than the steak does. It's incredible. So I continue this endeavor. Of creating these new items. So Formaggio has expanded to over 75 different ways to enjoy fresh mozzarella. In 1991, there was a prosciutto roll available in a supermarket. It looked like a hockey puck. It was 4.5 inches in diameter, 3/4 of an inch high, and it displayed flat, and all you would see is this very thin line of a spiral of Italian meats. It wasn't conducive for serving. You couldn't share it. When you cut it, it fell apart. It drove me crazy. And I said to myself, if I have this problem, everybody must have this problem. How can I create a product that's more consumer friendly? A value-added product that makes our lives easier. So I took this tremendous roll that we started out with and used to slice into these hockey puck looking 8-ounce pieces of prosciutto and mozzarella, or pepperoni and mozzarella, and I made a 2-inch diameter chub, about 5 inches long, and I took the meat that was on the inside and wrapped it around the outside so people could truly understand it was a meat and cheese roll, what we call today charcuterie. And because of the size, it was easy to slice, easy to serve, and there was enough to go around, and everybody always enjoyed it. So I set my sights on not only taking the fresh mozzarella products to new heights, but consumer-friendly, value-added. How can I make people's lives easier? Well, that was another major step for me. Years later, I realized that what I loved to eat myself was fresh, hot mozzarella, and I'd get some prosciutto that we import from Italy, and I would put that fresh mozzarella inside that meat, and I would roll it up, and I would eat it. It was incredible. And I said, how can I get other people to enjoy this the way I do? And that's how Formaggio's artisan wraps were born. A finger-sized stick of fresh mozzarella wrapped with authentic Italian meats. Prosciutto, supersada, pepperoni, everybody's got a favorite. And it just took off. People truly understand quality. I know how smart my customer base is, and that the reason they buy Formaggio products because they know they're getting the best. Because when you buy a Formaggio product, you realize at Formaggio, it's all about the cheese. You can taste the Formaggio difference. There are a lot of companies out there, meat companies that are buying pizza cheese and they're slicing it and rolling it together. I don't even understand that. That's not the authentic Italian experience. If you want the authentic Italian experience, you want Formaggio brand, charcuterie rolls, artisan wraps. That's the authentic Italian experience. Pairing fresh mozzarella with authentic Italian meats. Flavor profiles that were created so many years ago. Listen, when I go to Italy and I want that Italian experience and I want some prosciutto and we're going to have some olives, and I don't say, give me a piece of pizza cheese. We love pizza cheese. I love pizza cheese on my pizza, but not in my antipasto, not in my charcuterie roll. No, that's not an authentic Italian experience. I don't even know what to call that, except sliced cold cuts that somebody else rolled up. Formaggio pays attention to detail, and I can give you my word that every artisan wrap that we make and sell is rolled by hand in our factory every single day to guarantee you, my customer, the freshest item they can get, the best combination of meat and cheese available in the marketplace. Because, again, at Formaggio, It's all about the cheese. So with this opportunity, I want to thank you, my customer, for taking the time to watch this video so I can give you a little bit of background about my company and what our true endeavor is to bring you, our customer, the best fresh mozzarella products your money can buy, creating the best Italian experience for you. From the big cheese to you, Mongiello.